In this Jurassic kingdom of night hunters and river monsters, the pale glow of a new dawn breaks over ancient forests. Stirring primal creatures, adapted to a bizarre world like no other. Giant reptiles reign supreme. This is the story of a hidden prehistoric wilderness. A chronicle of extraordinary change through deep time. Of a dinosaur realm at the end of the earth. That today lies beneath colossal sheets of ice. Welcome to Gondwana. Welcome to Antarctica. How did a lush, prehistoric world become the frozen desert we know today? The coldest, windiest place on the planet. What lost world may lie beneath these forbidding glaciers? While a surprising diversity of animals live along Antarctica's edges, its sweeping interior is nearly devoid of life, blanketed by sheets of ice miles deep. So deep that only the very peaks of the enormous transantarctic mountains rise above the white expanse. But it is here, locked in the layers of stone and sediment, a keen eye can find secrets from a far greener continent. In 1912, members of Captain Robert Falcon Scott's Antarctic expedition to reach the South Pole made a surprising discovery. Unusual rocks containing plant fossils with beautifully traced leaves in layers. Frostbitten, injured and hungry, Scott and his men dragged 35 pounds of these rock samples on their sled as they struggled across the ice, refusing to lighten their load and cast aside the fossil find that they knew was truly remarkable, hinting at a forested world from long ago. Scott's fossils were from a tree called Glossopteris, dating to roughly 270 million years ago. The discovery of these same fossils around the southern hemisphere was evidence that the Earth's continents were once all joined, forming a prehistoric supercontinent known as Pangaea during the Permian time period. Parts of Pangaea covered the southern pole, capped by glaciers, similar to today. But a shift to a warmer climate led to the end of an ice age. Polar glaciers melted, moving the planet to greenhouse conditions. By the age of dinosaurs, the world had entered a hotter time. Antarctica was at the heart of a warm and lush South Polar world known as Gondwana.
These old historic specimens are so fantastic.
Paleontologist Dr. Pete Makovicky from the Field Museum of Natural History in Chicago.
Here's Cryolophosaurus.
Oh, these dorsals came out really nice.
And Dr. Nate Smith from the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles County are getting ready for a major Antarctic expedition to explore the continent's prehistory. They will be joined by fossil preparator Akiko Shinya on her first trip to Antarctica.
Oh, everything's articulated.
Yeah.
I find Antarctica especially fascinating because many of the animals we find are new to science. One of the highlights of my career has been the work we did excavating a huge Antarctic meat-eating dinosaur, the South Polar King of the early Jurassic. Found in 1990, it took over 2 decades and multiple expeditions to remove this huge predator from the frozen rock of the Transantarctic Mountains. This is Nate Smith, and we're back to the Cryolophosaurus story. We've got Pete Makovicky who's working on the hammer drill right now. We're going to take out a bunch of chunks like that, hopefully in pieces about 300 to 800 pounds. In Antarctica, rock is extremely hard because it's not exposed to rain and repeated thawing. This poses challenges that require, shall we say, less conventional methods to extract our specimens.
This quarry was started in 1990-91, so 20 years later we finally got the last bones of it. And this has been one of the most fantastic experiences of my life. You know, when this quarry started, our student Nate Smith was only like 9 years old, and he's with us today to finish it up.
Cryolophosaurus, meaning frozen crested lizard, turned out to be the largest known carnivore on Earth for its time. While the Cretaceous had T-Rex, the early Jurassic had Cryolophosaurus.
It's late spring in southern Gondwana. This is the stomping ground of a 25-foot Cryolophosaurus, and he's on the hunt. A herd of Glacialosaurus are nearby. More massive than a large elephant and unique to Antarctica, these long-necked plant eaters are early cousins of the largest dinosaurs on Earth, the sauropods. While the 6-ton adults are capable of running on 2 legs, the smaller juveniles are quite vulnerable to predators. Only one thing could distract a male Cryolophosaurus from a springtime meal. And there she is. Scientists can only speculate about the Cryolophosaurus's head crest. If the fancy display was used to attract a mate, it appears to have done its job. Dr. Patty Ryberg and PhD student Libby Ives will work alongside Nate's dinosaur hunter team on their expedition to Antarctica. But these scientists are looking for different clues to the past. Patty is a paleobotanist from Park University in Kansas, specializing in prehistoric plants.
You could say that I studied dinosaur food. To understand dinos, it's critical that we understand their environment too. This rare beach in southern New Zealand provides a glimpse of what prehistoric Antarctica may have been like during the early Jurassic. Among these tide pools are petrified tree stumps from the time of Cryolophosaurus.
Oh, Patty, look at this one.
Okay. We've got this really long tree here.
Sure.
Oh, and if we come down here, we can actually see the rings.
Libby is a geologist from the University of Wisconsin, studying rocks to reconstruct ancient environmental conditions. This will be her first trip to the icy continent.
If we can piece together the full story of Antarctica, how plants and animals and climate have changed so dramatically over time without human impact, it could help us understand the consequences of today's accelerated climate change.
The team's journey to Antarctica begins with a stop at the National Science Foundation's Antarctic Program headquarters in Christchurch, New Zealand. The first step is to gear up.
I've been preparing for this expedition for months. Antarctica is more remote than any field site I've ever visited.
Here we go.
All right. There aren't any windows on this plane, so I'll be counting down the 6 hours until I get my first glimpse of the ice.
A C-17 cargo plane transports the researchers and thousands of pounds of supplies to prep for the expedition. First stop, McMurdo Station.
As soon as you land on the continent, on an ice runway, you're dazzled by the brilliant 24-hour sunlight. It's an awestruck feeling, like arriving at a space colony on another planet.
McMurdo Station is actually a lot like a small town year-round, with over 1,000 researchers and support staff in the summer, from cooks to carpenters. It's a science city at the end of the Earth, and a critical stopover before heading off the grid into an extreme environment. Preparation is key. If something goes wrong, we're on our own.
Finally, it's another 2 hours on a smaller cargo plane into the Transantarctic Mountains to the Shackleton Glacier Deep Field Camp, our home for the coming months. This is the place I've been waiting to see.
training camp was even more beautiful than I had imagined. The sky is so blue, and the sun shines brighter than anywhere else I've been.
Our temporary base camp is really remote. If McMurdo's like a space colony, this place is an uninhabited planet.
Here we still have some infrastructure and a few heated spaces, including the galley with a chef where we eat and hold our meetings. But our sleeping tents and outhouses are not heated. The support staff has to melt glacier ice to make drinking water, but at least the refrigeration is pretty easy. For the next couple months, our homes will be these simple tents that we share with our fellow researchers.
Out here, the distances are pretty vast, so we rely on helicopters to head out to the remote sites we've identified. We can only fly when weather permits, so every day counts. We may not have another expedition to this part of Antarctica for another decade or more. We're all hoping for clear skies and new discoveries.
Libby's team heads out to survey the rock beds for clues from Antarctica's past over deep time.
Nate and Patty are studying the animals and the plants from prehistoric Antarctica. But what I'm trying to reconstruct is the environment they lived in. My job is to read the story that's written in these rocks. This place has changed over millions of years, from an icy wilderness to a lush dinosaur world, and then it froze again. To tell Antarctica's dinosaur story, you have to start at the beginning. On Shackleton Glacier, we're finding deposits from the late Permian, a time before the dinosaurs, about 260 million years ago. Other teams look for fossils, but I interpret the sediments and try to reconstruct the ancient glaciers and then the prehistoric forests that once stood right here.
Like today, the Permian was a time of changing climate. The ice caps were melting and seas were rising, creating a hotter, wetter, swampier planet. Antarctica's dominant Glossopteris forests managed to thrive in a place where it was dark for 6 months of the year, growing to over 60 feet tall. Insects thrive during this time. In some places, growing to impressive sizes. Paleobotanists can see the munch marks in the leaf fossils they left behind. The Permian was an age of primal creatures, including some land vertebrates quite bizarre. One of the common animals found in the Gondwana forests from this time were the lystrosaurs, meaning shovel lizard. But these were not dinosaurs or lizards. Rather, they were related to early mammals. Their goofy tusks and big clown feet may have been burrowing adaptations to help them survive Gondwana's extreme environmental conditions. But in these swampy environments, pig-sized plant eaters were not at the top of the food chain. The Permian world was also the realm of giant amphibian predators. lurking in the fresh water. Patty's team is looking for Permian fossils to understand how these great forests survived in a South Polar environment and why they all suddenly disappeared.
On this outcropping, we found something really amazing. 5 new fossil forest deposits, dominated by the Glossopteris tree, like those found by Scott's team over a century ago. We're finding lots of plants that we've never seen before.
It looks like an alien.
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
Resilient plants that survive 6 months of winter darkness and then constant summer sun. Tree rings and other evidence may help us understand how they grew in extreme conditions. But that resilience was not enough to spare Glossopteris from what came next. At the end of the Permian, a catastrophic mass extinction, the largest in Earth's history, changed everything. It has been called the Great Dying.
The Great Dying may have been triggered by major volcanic eruptions, followed by a series of catastrophic events. Carbon and ash lightly darkened the atmosphere, preventing photosynthesis and poisoning both land and sea. Excess carbon dioxide raised the Earth's temperatures so much that the ocean would have felt like a hot bath, collapsing ecosystems.
We don't fully understand if the Great Dying happened fast or over millions of years. But we do know that it wiped out almost every species in the oceans, 2 out of 3 land animals, and most plants and insects. More devastating than the dinosaur extinction yet to come. It was the mother of all extinctions.
The Great Dying marked the end of the Permian, but the beginning of the Triassic period which followed was still hostile to life across most of the planet, a hotter, drier desert world. But in the polar south, Antarctica remained cooler and more temperate, perhaps more hospitable, supporting lineages that survived the extinction. Lizard-like creatures like Prolacerta have been found in Antarctica's Triassic deposits. Its relatives would evolve into truly formidable sizes and dominate the planet for 100 million years as crocodiles and dinosaurs. Insects were hit hard, but the ancestors of cockroaches survived, naturally. The Lystrosaurs not only survived, they thrived. Those burrowing adaptations may have protected them in Antarctica's dark, frigid winters, but also allowed them to survive low oxygen environments and extreme temperatures. During the early Triassic, Lystrosaurs made up a huge proportion of land vertebrates on Earth. For a time, the world was covered in pudgy, pig-like, egg-laying beasts.
Keep going. It's about 100 yards.
Okay.
Hopefully this will go as well as the other resources we collected.
Paleontologists don't just look for dinosaurs. Our vertebrate team is finding a lot of fossil Lystrosaurus and dino relatives like Prolacerta. These were just little guys during the early Triassic. This terrain basically chronicles the dawn of the age of the dinosaurs. But man, these rocks are hard. Antarctica doesn't give up her secrets easily. Being here, in this place, is truly spectacular. In all this grandeur, it's the little moments that are likely to stick with me for a lifetime. Like a frigid Antarctic picnic lunch with friends at the edge of the world.
It took millions of years for life to rebound after the Great Dying. But by the Middle Triassic, a healthier ecosystem had returned. Many animals found a way to flourish, including some real-life monsters found only in Antarctica. Antarctosuchus, a giant amphibian the size of a crocodile, with 2 rows of razor-sharp teeth. Her eggs and tadpoles require water, so Antarctosuchus, like salamanders today, were mostly confined to rivers and lakes. But reptilian giants, like the 16-foot Erythrosuchus, dominated the land. The 2-ton relative of both crocodiles and dinosaurs, with an oversized head and a bite that rivaled T-Rex. However, in this river, Erythrosuchus is in for a surprise. A single Antarctosuchus would have been no match for this giant. But in numbers, they could deter the apex predator. Amphibians lurked in river nurseries for eons to come. But the advantage of laying eggs on land allowed the reptiles to evolve in diversity and to great size. The age of the dinosaurs had begun. By the Jurassic period in Antarctica, dinosaurs ruled, but they were not alone. Early mammal relatives, called tritylodonts, patrolled the forest floor. Fossil finds suggest they may have been burrowers with fur and whiskers, traits that may have helped the diminutive mammals survive in a world of giants. Like all dinosaurs, Cryolophosaurus laid eggs and likely tended her nest to protect her clutch from predators or egg thieves. mammals, our ancestors, would remain confined to the shadows for another 50 million years, scurrying under the feet of reptilian giants. By the late Cretaceous, dinosaurs, like the long-necked sauropod relatives of Glacialosaurus, had reached colossal proportions. Titanosaurs ranged across Gondwana, including Antarctica. "66 million years ago, another series of catastrophic events, including an asteroid impact, ended the age of the dinosaurs. Where towering forests once rimmed this southernmost continent, sheer cliffs of ice stand today. Though dinosaurs are long gone, some of their descendants, penguins, still call Antarctica home. So, how did the continent go from greenhouse to icehouse? By the end of the Cretaceous, Antarctica was largely separate from other land masses, home only to species uniquely adapted to long periods of dark at the South Pole. Over time, the familiar configuration of today's globe took shape. About 34 million years ago, Antarctica's isolation allowed cold ocean currents to circulate around the entire continent. As a result, snow in Antarctica no longer melted in the summers, and eventually accumulated, covering and packing the continent in solid ice. The extinction of the dinosaurs marked a new ecological era on Earth. Our ancestors, the mammals, would come to dominate the planet. Crocodilian lineages would become the new kings of the reptiles. Dinosaurs and other prehistoric giants had lived in Antarctica for more than 150 million years, but they were all long gone before the freeze. Only the very last of the non-avian dinosaurs may have seen or tasted snow, though their remains now rest beneath it, miles thick.
This expedition is shaping up to be a huge success for our teams. The weather has cooperated, and we found fossils of a number of vertebrates, including early reptiles and synapsids.
I like this tail. It's so cute.
Once we sort and pack all our samples, these thousands of pounds of rock will get shipped back to our labs, where we'll prep them out and see what else we can learn. This was definitely one of the most productive expeditions we've had.
Being in Antarctica in the summer means spending Christmas on the ice. It was strange to be in a winter wonderland so far from home, but everyone found a way to celebrate. Some days were incredibly difficult, but you make friends for life on these expeditions to the end of the earth.
We celebrated New Year's Day with a game of softball. But when it's time to ship out, it's a mixed bag of emotions. We're sad to leave, knowing there's so much more we could accomplish, but excited to dig deeper into what we found.
For the research team, the success in the field is just the beginning. The specimens collected this season will be studied for years across multiple science disciplines. Over 3 tons of fossils and sediment samples have returned to the labs for preparation, scanning, and analysis.
Opening up the crates of fossils back in the lab is sort of like a second Christmas. Our teams have all found different pieces of the same puzzle. If we can understand the plants, animals, and climate in Antarctica, we can create a better picture of how the planet changed over time.
Our team brought back over 200 vertebrate specimens, including complete skeletons, and likely some new species.
Oh, there we go. Look at that. Those ribs.
All this material will give us a much better understanding of what life looked like before and after the Great Dying.
It's one of the bigger Listersaurs we got.
The data I gathered from Antarctica is revealing the story from the last time in Earth's history that polar ice disappeared. Now, our glaciers are melting again, and this research may help us understand how life on Earth will change in a warming world.
I look at Cryolophosaurus and love to imagine what other creatures lay waiting to be discovered under Antarctica's blanket of ice, in the long-gone wilds of Gondwana. To share that story and be a part of the discovery of these prehistoric Antarctic animals is a childhood dream come true.
In my work, I think about deep time in geological terms. And humans are really just the tiniest part of this planet's enormous history. Shackleton Camp is gone now. But just for a moment, I was part of life in Antarctica. I stood on its glaciers. And I can say, I was there.
3, 2, 1, jump!
I was there.
Thank you for attending our show. When leaving the system, please check around your seat for personal items. Take those needing assistance by the hand and carefully exit up the stairs and through the doors at the rear of the cruise.